it's time to go over some of the finer details.
G-Force was released on July 24th, 2009, with a budget of $150 million.
I mean, there was a lot of CG, and it was pretty good. So
Yeah.
And he had a lot of stars.
2009, and it does look pretty cartoony, but it holds up decently enough. I feel like it feels more like, doesn't feel like real guinea pigs, but it feels like,
Passable.
getting close. Yeah.
I think kids would still watch it, even though mine didn't.
Definitely. Your kids didn't like it?
Wow. You didn't give two shits. I kept being like, look, hamsters. She literally spends most of the day watching videos of hamsters instead on YouTube doing mazes and stuff, and couldn't even move the needle.
She's a tough audience. Didn't you say, you said Ant Bully she didn't watch?
She actually watched some of
Crude
Ant
she
Bully.
didn't watch, but
didn't
Ant
watch
Bully
the
she did.
Crudes.
That's the real, we should have her do the review at the end of the...
She's still a little young, I guess. They don't really have an attention span, but I couldn't even get her to watch 10 seconds of the CG guinea pigs. Even when there was an actual hamster in the movie, CG actual hamster, she was still just like, yep.
Yeah, so a budget of $150 million and grossed $292.8 million, which is not amazing for a movie that costs $150 million.
Yeah.
But still,
especially a family movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In 2009, I feel like that was when theaters were really rolling and doing really well. So it's kind of a surprise that it didn't do better. I mean, it's about, super spy guinea pigs. I don't know. But maybe people were leery of, there's been a lot of, at that point, there had been a lot of attempts to do this kind of thing with CGI animals in movies, and they just looked pretty janky.
Wasn't there that cats and dogs one that had come out? I think it was just called Cats and Dogs or something.
Yeah.
With same thing, same premise.
A lot of uncanny valley going on with those creatures at that point, but it's since gotten a million times better. I feel like they hold up pretty well.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like you're watching CG stuff as much as I thought it would be.
Yeah. I mean, obviously cartoony, but it's got to be for, it's a cartoony movie. So, directed by Hoyt Yeatman. Yeet. who is a lifelong visual effects artist and the co-founder of DreamQuest Images, which apparently operated from 1979 to 2001 and did the effects for so many household name movies that I can't even list them. But just a few examples: Blade Runner, Gremlins, Predator, The Abyss keeps coming up. That they actually won an Oscar for the visual effects. Total Recall, The Rock, Con Air, and Armageddon. Heavy hitter when it comes to visual effects, but he had never directed anything before that and has never directed anything since then.
Yeah.
He himself actually won an Academy Award in 1999 for technical achievements for his visual effects studio. G-Force is the only movie that he has ever directed. I don't even know how that happens. I mean, he's apparently a really good friend of Jerry Bruckheimer. And I guess because he came up with the idea for this whole movie, but the story was actually an idea by Yeatman's 5-year-old son.
Sure.
Which his dad liked so much that he pitched it to Jerry Bruckheimer. Then the story was fleshed out by visual effects artist David James. For some reason, he's listed as David P.I. James. So he's either a private investigator or there's a lot of David James working in Hollywood.
Or he's a rapper. P.I. James sounds like a
P.I. James.
It does.
But it's just so funny that the story actually came from a 5-year-old, which makes a lot of sense when you watch the movie.
Yeah.
And then they go and they run in a tire from some dogs.
Then he farts on him. He farts on him again, and then he farts on him one more time.
Daddy, I love Flo Rida. Please play Flo Rida.
Put more Black Eyed Peas. I like Black Eyed Peas. The screenplay was actually written by Cormac and Marianne Wibberley, who are regulars on this show at this point. who have, among other things, written the National Treasure films and, of course, cinematic masterpieces like Charlie's Angel, Full Throttle, and Bad Boys 2.
Only one good film out of that whole. How do you go from writing Bad Boys 2 to writing garbage like this?
Hey, they wrote National Treasure 1 and 2 and the TV
my
series.
How do you go from writing National Treasure to garbage like this? And I don't even like National Treasure.
There's some moments.
It just kind of feels like everybody was just like, it's a movie about fucking guinea pigs, like doing saving the world. Like, don't try
Do
too
we
hard.
really have to put much effort into this? No.
No.
I feel like the thought with the studio was that this was just gonna do amazing money no matter what, because it's like cute and funny premise that had been done 4,000 times already at that point.
Yep.
But you
just put Jerry Bruckheimer in charge of organizing everything and give him a check, and that was all pretty much all Disney did, I imagine.
It's very Bruckheimer. This film is, even though it's a kids movie and it's CGI mixed with live action, it is very Jerry Bruckheimer.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because this would have been around the same time as like I guess this was after the Pirates movies wrapped up. But
I think the last Pirates was like
thing.
2006 or 2007.
I think 2006 or 7. Yeah. So I think they were kind of hoping
one.
to. Yeah.
And then ironically, Penelope Cruz was in the next Pirates movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is
So maybe they were
auditions.
thinking we'll bank off of that. People love dumb movies.
People are stupid. They'll love this. This was shot by Bojan Bazeli. I think that's how you say his name. We talked about this guy before, but he's been working since the 80s. Shot Pumpkinhead back in the day.
Oh, that's right.
King of New York with Christopher Walken. California, that movie where Brad Pitt's a murderer that nobody seemed to like but me, with David Duchovny. Remember that one? The Ring, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, The Sorcerer's Apprentice, and an absolutely horrible film that is nonetheless near and dear to my heart because it's just so goddamn weird. This movie called A Gnome Named Norm.
Oh my gosh.
Which is a masterpiece of just like the creepiest little Muppet ever. And like, it's unsettling but hilarious. With Anthony Michael Hall, like during his dark period where nobody heard anything from Anthony Michael Hall after his Rat Pack days to being in the dead zone or whatever. Do yourself a favor, get really stoned and watch that Nightmare Fuel and just enjoy. It's great. It's a masterpiece. Edited by Mark Goldblatt and Jason Hellman. Goldblatt is a James Cameron staple, having done Piranha, The Terminator, T2, and True Lies, but also edited Rambo 2, Showgirls, Starship Troopers, Armageddon, Bad Boys 2, and the worst X-Men movie of all time, X-Men Last Stand. Maybe it's harsh to say that's the worst one.
No, it is. I just rewatched all of them, and that was
the Wolverine a little bit
no,
worse.
that's not true. The Wolverine's good, except for the end. Dark Phoenix is the worst X-Men movie. But of that original collection, yeah, definitely Last Stand.
Yeah, definitely.
Of Wolverine Origins is actually not as bad as I remember it being. It's somehow. This is not Wolverine's Origins show, but Wolverine Origins is somehow better and worse than I remember. But still not as bad as Last Stand.
The ending is bad, like real bad.
Is that the one with Ryan Reynolds?
Yeah.
Where he makes his first Deadpool appearance.
Yeah, which he'd been trying to do apparently since he was in Blade 3. He'd been trying to play Deadpool. It was like his audition was playing that character who was sort of like Deadpool in Blade Trinity. But anyway, Last Stand, terrible movie, especially for the ending of a trilogy. So which I think makes it worse than the other. So, yeah.
Yeah, it really fell off the cliff on that one. Goldblatt also edited Detroit Rock City with Adam Rifkin. Name that just keeps on coming up. The co-editor, which I don't know how, I'm guessing it was like one person's kind of working on the CG parts of things and editing that, and then one is kind of working on the live action parts. But Jason Hellman has a slightly less prolific resume, but edited Deja Vu, that Denzel Washington movie.
Yeah.
The Gray, which I actually really enjoyed with Liam Neeson. And was an assistant editor way back when on Gone in 60 Seconds.
Oh, my gosh. That guy's got a great resume.
Music by, we all know him, we all love him. The guy who invented the modern-day generic soulless action movie music that Jerry Bruckheimer and Michael Bay have popularized. That's right, I'm talking about Yes guitarist Trevor Rabin, who we have now talked about on 5 separate shows.
Yeah.
Though I think the only other collaboration with Cage is Sorcerer's Apprentice, so we're almost out of the Trevor Rabin catalog, sadly. But I'm sure he's going to come back if they make a National Treasure 3. So we'll end up talking about him again.
They might just recycle his movie from the first 2 movies to save his music.
All of his music sounds the same.
Yeah.
It's just might as well. Dun, 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun. That's all you got to do.
Nailed it.
Ratings, this has a 22% on Rotten Tomatoes. 4.4 out of 10 on 128 reviews. That is a healthy sample size. 22%. Only 22% of the critics gave it a 6 or above, which is, deserving. Yeah. Audience score is not much better, 40%. You know, if it's a kid's movie and it's supposed to be fun and it gets a 40%, that it's not a good movie. It's just not. Mm-hmm. Metacritic score is a 41%. Again,
they're all kind of right around the same.
Yeah, they're all around the same. Interesting.
Yeah. IMDb is slightly more forgiving, 5.1 out of 10. And then the cinema score is a B+.
Ooh.
Which is not good.
Ouch. That's rough.
Overall, pretty harsh reviews on this one across the board. Most people kind of pointed to the fact that all of the characters just don't seem to be characters. They're just kind of there.
Stereotypes.
Very generic. Even Sam Rockwell, who is like always one of those guys who gives you something amazing, is just pretty flat and boring.
Yeah,
and
there were so many times
archetype
where
hero.
They was just reading a line with no context, and they just stuck it in. You know, it felt like it didn't feel like they were reacting.
Yeah.
It's like they just had him read a whole bunch of lines, and then the editor just stuck them into different places into the movie.
It did really feel like that. Yeah.
I don't understand, like, I guess for isolation, but it always is kind of weird to me how they record the lines separately. I think actors really should be in the room together and reacting off of each other, but it's harder to cut that way.
Yeah.
And it's more expensive if you have to have separate sound booths for every person.
Totally. Or just to record them all, in a room together, because it's going to take longer, I think. So it's just cost more.
That was how Rango was done. Was like they actually went to locations and then they just boom mic'd everybody as they were delivering their lines, and they like acted out the scene together. And I think it was much better results. Wes Anderson does that on his stop motion films that he's been doing as well, which I think definitely gives it a more natural and more authentic feel. Whereas these movies, every movie that we've done so far, the actors were all in the sound booth separately.
Yeah, that's weird.
Every one of the animated films that we've done so far.
I just went to the Comic-Con I went to this last weekend. I got autographs from basically the 2 cast members from the show The Bad Batch, because one of them plays all the clones in the Clone Wars and Bad Batch and Rebels and everything, and the other one is she plays the girl in the show that's like part of the group, and she's like the emotional core of the show. And even she was like, I was talking to her and she's like, yeah, when I'm recording this stuff, it's just like me in a room by myself, so when I come to things like this, it's so surreal to see like actual fans that actually come out and feel like, oh yeah, I'm part of the Star Wars like universe, basically, because to me it's just recording stuff by myself. I'm like, man, even with that, you got 2 people on that show basically doing 95% of it, and it's still just like one person recording in a room at a time.
What's the name of the guy that does all the males?
D. Bradley Baker.
Okay.
He does a shitload of everything else.
Yeah, he does a ton of stuff. Yeah.
Surprised she wasn't like, this is the first time I've met my co-stars.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm
at
sure
the
they met
con.
at a celebration thing, but yeah, like maybe they do. Well, she lives in New Zealand too, so it's extra like.
Oh wow. Yeah. So that's even
like
more
they hit to
isolated.
fly her out, so they probably don't just like because all the other voice actors just live in LA basically and hang out and have orgies. I'm guessing. And stuff. But yeah, I was
That's
really
how
shocked.
Hollywood works.
I wasn't even
Yeah.
expecting her to be at that con, and I'm super excited that she was because I got both of them to sign a specific Bad Batch poster that I got at Celebration that was exclusive to it.
Cool.
So, yeah, that's like priceless now to me. But she was really nice, and yeah, that was just what she said was kind of weird. Was like it's so strange coming to this stuff and realizing like. People actually like me and think that I'm part of Star Wars.
Yeah.
It's hard to remember I'm part of Star Wars when I'm just recording stuff in a booth.
Yeah. It's got to be a cool experience.
Yeah.